This is a new 2025 Volvo XC60. All right, time for the quirks and features of the XC60 T8 Polestar engineered, starting with the basics. Now, the entry-level base model XC60 starts around $48,000, which is very competitive among compact mid-sized luxury SUVs. But this one, the Polestar engineered, has a starting price of just under $77,000. Now, that's big money for a Volvo SUV in this segment, but this car delivers some impressive stuff. Under the hood is a four-cylinder engine that is turbocharged and supercharged, and it's a plug-in hybrid, and it's good for 455 horsepower, which, like I said, is more power than any new gas-powered Porsche Macan on sale right now. Yes, even the S and the GTS, this Volvo has more power. It also has about 525 pound-feet of torque, and all-wheel drive is standard, sends this from 0 to 60 in about 4.2 seconds, which is legitimately fast for an SUV like this. And just in case you also want some efficient to go with your fast, the EPA says this has a fully electric range of about 36 miles that you can go before the gasoline engine kicks in. Now, beyond the power and the stronger acceleration, the Polestar upgrades to this XC60 are surprisingly subtle, actually. The most notable and obvious is the wheels. The Polestar has these big 22-inch wheels. That's pretty serious for a Volvo SUV, especially an XC60, and around them you have Pirelli P0 summer tires. They're serious about performance when they're not putting all seasons on an all-wheel drive Volvo crossover. You also have extra large brakes, especially in front, as you can see, and those are wrapped in these gold yellow brake calipers. That's kind of Polestar's distinctive color and distinctive touch. In fact, that Polestar color appears in a few places. The valve stem caps are gold in Polestar engineered models, and you also have that gold carried into the seat belts in the interior, reminding you even on the inside that you have the special Polestar model. Now, still on the wheels, in order to have these big wheels and wider tires for more grip, this XC60 also has fender extensions. You can see slightly bulged out fender extensions to cover up the wheels both front and rear, which also gives you the clue that this is the Polestar model. But aside from that stuff, there's really nothing about this car that tells you it's the high performance version of the XC60. It's a very subtle performance upgrade, despite the fact that it's significantly more power and better acceleration than every other XC60. You do have badging, but it's this tiny little badge in back. You can see barely readable. It says Polestar engineered, and you have the same badge up front on the grille. That's basically it. Big wheels, a little badge, and some fender extensions is all you're broadcasting to people. This really harkens back to an era when performance vehicles were subtle and they let the power do the talking. And there's actually something kind of cool about that. And the other distinctive touch that these Polestar engineered models have is adjustable suspension. But interestingly, the adjustment is manual. In front, to adjust the suspension, you gotta open up the hood, and you can see this is your little dial that you can use to choose exactly the firmness level where you want the suspension. That's what you gotta do in front. In back, you actually have to jack up the car and then go into the rear wheel well, and the suspension adjuster is in there. I have a suspicion not too many XC60 people will be doing that, but manually adjustable Öhlins suspension in this car if that's something that you're interested in adjusting, giving it a little bit more performance chops, I suppose. Now, since we're under the hood, one rather interesting quirk of this car and other XC60 models, you can see the plastic engine cover, except it's not plastic. When you push on it, it bends in. It's actually a foam, sort of like a rubbery foam, and Volvo's been using this on their cars for a while. They told me ages ago it was for pedestrian safety, so a pedestrian impact doesn't hit the plastic cover, obviously break that instantly and then hit the engine block. Instead, there's like a little little bit of give there to cushion the impact, which is interesting to see and kind of cool. Now, as far as other things worth talking about, especially outside the car, there's really not all that much to say, except that it looks good, which is particularly impressive because this model of the XC60 came out for the 2018 model year. It's been on sale for 7 or 8 years now. It's getting old by most standards, and yet it still looks nice. Good proportions, nice, simple, clean design. It was refreshed for 24, but generally kept the same look, and it's still good. And that speaks to Volvo's design language, which frankly is just fantastic. Volvo does a great job of designing cars for long product runs, and the cars look good for the whole design. They're simply attractive, and this one is no exception. Still looks good even after this time. And it's the same deal on the inside. Again, this interior hasn't been redesigned since the XC60 was fully redesigned back in 18. They've made some little touches to keep it fresh, but it's largely the same interior, and it largely looks great. It's still a nice, simple, clean, elegant, attractive design that looks really nice. It's a well laid out interior. Everything looks good. By skipping some of the trappings of like the latest and greatest in design language, Volvo allows their designs to last for longer and still stay nice, and that's certainly the case in here. And you've got nice materials. You can see nice touches everywhere. Everything looks good, feels nice. There's nice leather all over the place with good stitching. The dashboard, the seats, everything looks good. And that's especially true of the shifter, which is a crystal shifter. It looks cool, it feels cool to touch, and it's made by Aurifours, which is this company that primarily makes crystal stuff, and it even includes their logo, which is a seal. Not too many cars have a seal on their shifter, but this one does. Now, with that said, in Volvo's quest for an elegant, minimalist design, there are some misses in this interior. For example, there's no wireless charging pad in this car. Apparently the XC60 had it in the past, but it's certainly gone now, and it doesn't have one, which is disappointing. That would have been a nice feature to include. The other big miss is the climate control, which is almost entirely integrated into the central screen. And frankly, the integration can be a bit clunky. Not only do you have to tap the screen and then tap elsewhere for more stuff, but just turning on the heated seats requires 2 separate taps. One to pull up the menu, one to turn on the heated seat, as opposed to a simple button push on so many other cars. Again, Volvo was going for elegant, simplistic, minimalist in here. They did a good job, but that means you lose some of these pretty frequently used controls to a screen and menus. And that's also especially true of the drive mode situation in this car. Virtually every vehicle I'm in, the drive mode is just a little dial you twist or roll or turn. But in this car, to change the drive mode, you got to go into the screen, press the settings button, believe it or not, then tap driving at the top, and only then are your drive modes displayed at the top. That's particularly frustrating in the Polestar model because you're probably going to want to be in the Polestar performance drive mode pretty frequently since you paid up for the extra Polestar-ness. But every time you start the car, it goes back to a basic drive mode, and every time you want to go into Polestar, you got to go settings, driving, drive modes, rather than just flipping a switch. Now, with that said, there are many things that I like about this infotainment screen. Probably the biggest is that it's a vertically oriented screen, like a smartphone, so you're already coming at this with a pretty good idea of how it's going to be laid out and how to use it. And there's even a home button at the very center in the bottom, like the old iPhones used to have. So anytime you're confused, you're deep in some menu structure, just press that button to go home. It goes right home, and it's very intuitive. That's excellent. And the camera system has some real benefits too. One is how easy it is to pull it up. Instead of going deep into some menu, you just tap this little button in the corner with the camera on it, and the camera system comes up. And the thing that I especially love here is that Volvo was able to figure out how to make their 360 top-down camera take up the whole screen. I've been in a lot of cars where this 360 top-down camera has a portion of the screen. It's too small to be really useful, but here, because it's a vertical screen, and because of the way they've designed it, it's the full screen, which makes parking especially easy when you're using that top-down camera. Of course, this system also comes with a lot of familiar apps. It includes Google Maps, which is obviously nice to see, and also Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And just generally, it's easy to use, responsive to your touch. Overall, a nice, well-designed infotainment system, although the climate controls, some people may not like having them integrated in there, which makes sense. Now, I cannot say the same positive things about the gauge cluster, and I think the gauge cluster screen is one example where this car shows its age a little bit. You do have a full screen gauge cluster here, but it's not really configurable. The map is in the center and then vehicle information on the sides that can't really be changed. You can turn off the map, but it's not replaced by anything, and you can pull up a trip odometer, but that's about it. You can't have your music displayed here, your phone, you can't have it show two things at once. So many other cars do a better job of this gauge cluster screen and its configurability, and it's disappointing to see that Volvo has a miss here and not as much information or configurability as you probably would want. And beyond the tech in this car, interestingly enough, there are some rather cool touches, some quirks and features, if you will. For instance, turning the car on is not just a simple button press. Instead, this is the engine start stop, and it's a switch that you twist to the right like an old school key, but obviously it's a switch, and it's kind of cool and kind of satisfying to make that twist and turn on and off the car. I like that they did that. I wish they'd do it in all their other cars too. And next up, we move on to the back seat in the XC60 Polestar engineered, which is probably pretty similar to the back seat in other XC60 models, and honestly, it is surprisingly roomy back here. This is a compact crossover bordering on midsize, but it certainly isn't large like the XC90, and yet there is good space in back for an adult. I'm 6'4", and I sit back here with no problems. Knee room, leg room, headroom. It's well-sized, this car, which is pretty surprising, again, considering the older design. It hasn't grown in a while, and yet there's good space back here, front and rear, in the XC60. Unless you are the middle seat passenger, in which case you are screwed because of the giant hump in the floor for the driveline. There's no way you're going to get your feet around that. There's not enough space for a middle seat person to realistically sit in this car for any longer trips. But good space on the outboard seats, surprisingly, for a vehicle in this size class. As for amenities back here, there are a few. Heated rear seats is nice to have. That's a nice touch, but you don't get central rear climate vents. Now, you do have climate vents on the pillars sort of next to the front seats, which is helpful, but those central climate vents blow more air exactly where you want it, and frankly, most other rivals have them. Disappointing not to see it here. Not a huge deal, but worth pointing out. The other interesting thing to note back here is the device charging situation. You have a little circular device charging port, which implies a cigarette lighter style outlet, but you open it up and it's actually two USB-C ports, which again, kind of show off this car's age. I'm sure when it first came out, that was a cigarette lighter style port, and then they just morphed it into USB-C, but kept the same circular design. Still, it works, and it's great, and it charges devices. And finally, we move on to the cargo area in the XC60. Pop open the power tailgate. You can see back here the cargo space is surprisingly generous. And I say surprisingly, especially because rear seat room was also surprisingly generous. Usually, especially in this segment of the market, you have to make a choice between extra cargo space or extra rear seat space. Here, they do both, and in an older vehicle design. This car was really well designed and well executed when it was new, and it's still going well based on that. And if you need extra storage space back here, there's a little bit under the floor. You can lift up this handle and you can see a little extra storage here, I guess, for the charging cables or other stuff if you want it. And there's a little extra storage off to the side in this netting area, but nothing huge. Still good cargo space back here. And one interesting XC60 touch back here, you can see in the middle of the seat back for the rear seats, there's an opening that would be for a pass-through for longer, taller items like skis or ski poles. Most crossovers in this world don't have the pass-through because the seats fold down. They figure you don't need it, but here you get both. The seats fold down and you have the pass-through, which some people might find really, really useful. It's nice to see. Now, There are a couple of drawbacks in this cargo area. One is there's no latches to fold the seats in the cargo area. Most other rivals have this. In this car, you gotta go around to the seat itself and fold it down, which adds just a little bit of annoyance and inconvenience. Also worth pointing out, there's no household style power outlet anywhere in this car. By this point, most rivals have a household outlet, at least in the cargo area, if not in the back seats. Here you do get a cigarette lighter style outlet back here, but obviously not as useful for most stuff, and it'd be nice to have at least one household power outlet in the car somewhere. But generally speaking, a pretty nice cargo area. And one other interesting trick worth noting about the XC60, the badge. You can see the 6 in XC60 is simply the 9 in XC90 flipped over. And so when Volvo makes the XC60 and the XC90, they don't need to make a separate badge, they just turn over the existing number, which I'm sure saves them something like 38 cents per car. That is some good Swedish thing. And so that's the new Volvo XC60 T8 Polestar engineered. It may not be an X3M or a Macan Turbo, but if you want a nice SUV that flies under the radar but still has excellent performance, this is the one. Everybody will think you're in a nice, safe, regular Volvo until you floor it, and then you're gone.